The Great Debate Series.
And today's great debate inspired by Florida State University, Perloff, ever heard of them, getting robbed of a spot in the college football playoff. We are doing the greatest sports robberies, screw jobs, injustices, whatever you want to call it. The biggest ones we've ever had in sports. I don't know if FSU is going to make the cut.
Well, I think we should rule FSU out. I think you need a little bit of perspective. That happened 3 days ago. Can they make the list? I honestly feel like, you know what? No. Let's put them on there because people want to call in and say this is the worst screw job in sports history. I want to hear it.
Well, and I know that we have a lot of wrestling fans, not to be conflicted with the Montreal screw job. No. The greatest sports screw jobs of all time.
That's number one.
We know, Pete. I knew you were going there. Would you like to go first, sir?
Okay. Let's go into our time machine. Woo! I'm doing the Wayne's World time machine. All the way back to a time called 2018, pre-pandemic.
What was that?
2018 NFC title game. Now, I know this is recent, and we've gotten some criticism in our Great Debate Series for going too recent. But to me, it is the Rams-Saints NFC title game. Let me paint the scenario for you. 1:49 left, score tied at 20. The Saints are driving. They throw the ball down to Tommy Lee Lewis. Who could forget Tommy Lee Lewis? As the ball is heading to him from Drew Brees' arm, he gets tackled by Nickel Roby-Coleman. No flag. If they had called the flag, then the Saints could have kneeled and won the hit a short field goal to win the game. Instead, the Rams come out on top. Let's hear the sound.
Quick snap. Breeze. Pass is incomplete. No flag for Tommy Lee Lewis. Nickel Roby-Coleman delivered a hit. And the two officials talk to each other. Crowd's going crazy as there's no flag right on the Saints sideline.
Well, if Nickel Roby-Coleman plays the ball, it's an interception. It's probably going the other way with it. I mean, the ball's on the other side of Roby-Coleman, but that should have been a penalty.
So basically, the Rams, the Saints kicked the field goal. The Rams came down, kicked a tying field goal, and the Rams won in overtime, went on to the Super Bowl to lose to the Patriots 13-3. And I think the Saints were a better team. They probably could have beat kind of a down Patriots team. Cost the Saints a second Super Bowl, possibly. The next year, they decide to review pass interference plays. Didn't work, and now we're stuck with bad pass interference calls all over the place.
Yes.
So I don't know what we've learned from that. But there was multiple lawsuits, and to me, to get onto this list, some legislator has to sue. If there's no lawsuit, like Florida State, you need some legal action. This was so big that it actually got somewhere in the courts. This, to me, is the ultimate screw job.
It's a good one. Now, I decided to not go with any referee call because that call, as bad as it was, the no call, there were a million times in a million ways Drew Brees and the Saints could have won that game. And they could have won. It shouldn't have all come down to that one call that led to this domino effect. So I can't say it can just be one bad call as the ultimate sports screw job. What I think is the biggest robbery screw job in sports is the Seattle Supersonics leaving Seattle and going to Oklahoma City. Now, this was classic new owner. Howard Schultz sells to Clay Bennett. Clay Bennett was from Oklahoma City. At first said he was never going to move the team, but he wanted a new arena or upgrades to Key Arena. They couldn't receive the public funding, but a deeper dive on this will show that a Washington State senator by the name of Frank Chopp never actually brought the proposal to the people of Seattle to even vote on whether or not they wanted public funds to improve the arena. Like, ultimate screw job. We don't know what people would have voted for. There were on both sides of the of taxpayers paying for stadiums. But there was a major caveat here in that Steve Ballmer, who was then the CEO of Microsoft still, was willing to pony up $150 million of his own money to try and keep Seattle and the Supersonics in Seattle. So it wouldn't have been the full freight that the taxpayers would have had to pay. At least that's how I'm reading it now. This obviously all went down in April 2008. This is a franchise that had Gary Payton. going off of your 2018, of Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, and a proud franchise in a city that loved basketball. And in April 2008, the last game was played. I mean, Kevin Durant was a part of that organization. And who knows, like, the legacy and the 41 years of professional basketball in Seattle was wiped away.
You know, it's a really, really good one. But I'm just curious, the two famous football moves, the Colts moving in the middle of the night and the Browns leaving Cleveland. I thought those were just slightly more intense because there's documentaries about both.
Totally. So here's why I went with Seattle is because we don't even have the Supersonics anymore.
Yeah,
we still have
never
a version
got
of the Browns. We still have a version of the Colts. Like, we got the Ravens out of this, so we got an expansion.
Well, we
into
still have a
Baltimore.
version of the
Or
Sonics.
a different, not an expansion. We got a new franchise. Yeah.
Well, okay. So your argument is that those cities got new teams eventually.
Yeah, they did, and they got the name, the legacy, all that stuff. Like, if you're Seattle, that franchise is now just over. Like, you're the Thunder now, like, and it's not even. It doesn't feel like a continuation of the Supersonics.
What if Seattle gets a team back next year? Will that? It feels like it's been so long that it doesn't really fix that injustice.
I don't think it does. At the same time, I think that Vegas is what's on everyone's radar now in terms of expanding. So I don't even know if Seattle is going to get us.
Usually you expand two teams, so
I think it's going back to Canada.
I would hope Seattle would be Montreal.
I would hope so too.
Or Vancouver.
Back to Vancouver, maybe. Again, Vancouver at least is still the Grizzlies that I'm going to Memphis. Like, you keep the name, you keep some association. Maybe Supersonics is just gone. It's like poof, it's just over.
We'll see. Maybe they come back. I mean, we just got the Kraken.
That's true.
Okay, that is a good one. And you forgot Xavier McDaniel, my favorite Sonic.
How could I? EJ, biggest screw job, robbery, injustice in sports is what?
So Perloff was on the right track, I think, with pass interference calls, but he got the wrong pass interference call. So this one goes back to the 2003 Fiesta Bowl. You have Miami Hurricanes going for a second back-to-back national championship against Ohio State, and an incomplete pass in the end zone somehow gets called a flag. Here's a call from the great Keith Jackson.
Lorette's up there as a wide out too. The ball goes into the end zone, and it is incomplete. Intended for Gamble. Now there is a penalty flag thrown. Hold on. Hold the phone. Everybody comes running down on the field. You got to get off because there's a penalty flag thrown, and I think it's against Miami.
And if it's thrown in the end zone, the ball will be placed on the 1 yard line.
In Miami, you're talking about the greatest college football team of all time. Really, truly would have been crowned that had they got a second national championship. So many NFL players. And look, you could hear the fireworks. You hear the crowd cheering. If you watched this, you saw Miami players running onto the field celebrating. Ohio State players crying. Craig Krenzel, the quarterback, on the ground. Everyone thought the game was over except for that bozo referee who was at the back of the end zone who threw the flag about 5 minutes after the play happened and said that it was a pass interference, which it was not, by the way. Glenn Sharp covering Chris Gamble hit him right as the ball came there. So clearly not a pass interference. And to decide the game like that put Ohio State on the 1 yard line and allowed them to go ahead and win that game. Absolute egregious situation. Another robbery for the Miami Hurricanes, which seems to happen quite often in the history of college football. And the NCAA just seems to love to screw Miami anytime they got. This was probably the worst of it all. So I'm taking the 2003 Fiesta Bowl, Miami, Ohio State. The pass interference call that should not have been called is the worst sports screw job.
Wow.
All right, Pete Bellotti, what do you have?
Well, you know what? I see Andrew Bogusch in here. I'm going to let him go first, and I'm going to save mine for last. All right?
Andrew Bogusch is jumping in today. He's actually going to be hosting Bill Ryder's show after us, but you just needed to get in on this great debate.
Yeah, and Pete's being a gentleman here because I think we have the same one because we're gentlemen as a whole.
Yeah.
That's right.
Are you, though?
Yeah. Yes, Maggie, I am. Contrary to popular belief in this room, I am a gentleman when push comes to shove.
The meanest people on the show, and I believe you were number one with a bullet, but anyway.
It's also relatively speaking.
It's true.
Well, I'm going to go with a referee call, an umpire call. Armando Galarraga pitched a perfect game.
Good one.
He pitched a perfect game, and Jim Joyce, for whatever reason, called safe instead of out at first base on the 27th and final batter. I said at the time, and I still believe it now, baseball should have fixed it.
Yep.
There was no repercussions. There was no butterfly effect. It was the last play of the game. They should have retroactively given him one. We'll always remember his name, but he should have a perfect game on his resume. He absolutely got robbed.
You are so right. And actually, there is a butterfly effect, though, because then we got replay in baseball.
That was a smoking gun.
But
Off
it wasn't
of that.
like
But
in
yes,
the
you're
seventh
right.
inning, they get eight
No,
more
the game was
batters.
over.
The game was over.
The game was over.
The game was
But
over.
You're
I
right.
disagree. Because it's like Pete Rose not making the Hall of Fame. He made a career out of not making the Hall of Fame. This play, if it was just another perfect game, another no-hitter, we would remember it. But now we always remember it because of how it ended.
It is a screw job, though. It is an all-time robbery.
It's a screw job. But then they became friends, and they
I know. Shame on Galarraga for being nice.
I would never be friends with him.
What about the fact that they turned it into a positive? None of these other things ended up positive.
I'm sure Andre Galarraga must wake up in a cold sweat at least once a month, just being like, Joyce. Sorry,
I actually buy his. He forgave him. I thought that was a beautiful moment.
They say about holding grudges, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies.
Yep.
Bigger man than me. Yes, Pete?
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, it is a precursor to instant replay.
Yep.
And also, you could tell how egregious it was because the next day, Jim Joyce goes out there and is basically bawling his eyes out when Galarraga
Good
brings
Morning
out the
America,
lineup card.
right? Or Today Show or something?
This was on the field.
On the field.
No,
Listen,
I thought that did he sit down at one of the morning shows too? Did I
He
make
did
that
eventually, I think, but this was like the very next day on
Yes,
the
he cried.
He
field
did the
day.
EP show, I think.
Oh, did he?
He came on with us. I seem to remember. By the way, that's just a Tuesday for Angel Hernandez on Bad Call. Let's just be honest. I don't even know if he
tears.
qualifies.
Great call. Pete, was that yours also?
That was
Galarraga?
mine. Yeah, that's why I had Andrew kindly state it better than I.
He actually whispered in my ears. I sat down. What's yours? And I was like, you're not going to have mine. What is it? Armando Galarraga. Yeah, that's mine. I'm like, are you kidding
Wait
me?
a minute, Pete. I thought you were doing the Canadian figure skaters.
No, not them. But I had a bunch of other ones though. The Pete Rose not being in the Hall of Fame is a big injustice, considering the fact that there's sports betting everywhere now.
Yeah.
It's a total hypocrisy in sports. So I mean, the guy doesn't help himself. But I mean, it's time to cut our losses here and put him in the Hall of Fame. And then a big injustice for me, NBA leaving NBC. I think that's really led to where we are now, with players not really caring about the regular season because NBA on NBC really made you care about the regular season.
Didn't expect that.
What about the weed?
Rambo Rock, baby.
Yeah.
What's that?
What about the weed?
That too.
But trust me, there was weed in the NBA
Yeah,
when it was
come
on
on.
NBC.
It was just illegal back then. Not
Yeah.
anymore.
Ricky Davis played in this league. I mean, come on.
Ricky Davis. Oh, man.
I remember the day that Christian Laettner got suspended for weed. I was like, man, everybody's smoking.
That was the contact high, though.
855-212-4CBS. Okay. There you have it. We're doing the biggest sports robberies, screw jobs, injustices off of Florida State not being named a college football playoff finalist.